Welcome back to another episode of 68 Shining Moments. Today, we have Luke Hancock, who is the most outstanding player in Louisville's 2013 national title run. Welcome back to another episode of 68 Shining Moments, and I am thrilled to be joined today by the 2013 most outstanding player from the Final Four, the legend, Luke Hancock. Can I call you a legend? I can call you a legend, right?
I'm going to leave that up to you. Yeah, I'm not going to say no.
So before we actually get into the tournament run of the 2013 season, I want you to think about something for me. All right. The first time Louisville wins a title in 27 years in 2013, they had Russ Smith on the roster. They had Peyton Siva on the roster. They had two pros in the front court in Gorgie and Montrez. And it's the kid that transferred in from George Mason that ends up going out and winning Final Four MVP. You realize how special that is, how cool of a story that is, right?
Yeah, I think it's also kind of funny. You think about some of the better players across the ACC this year being transfers and guys who just needed to find a particular situation. Not that they weren't successful before, but when you step into all that talent, I felt really comfortable just taking a back seat in terms of production on the court. But really, my goals were to focus on making all these guys work best together. And I got no problem admitting there were a heck of a lot more talented guys on that roster than myself. But it was fantastic to go through all those moments with those guys. It was really special.
And I think it really sums up the depth and the talent that you guys actually had on that roster, where I would argue like the fifth guy in the pecking order was someone that can go out and get you 20 points in back-to-back Final Four games. So my question then is, when you entered that season, I think you guys were number 2 in the preseason AP poll. Did you realize that just how good you could be and the potential that this group had?
Yeah, you know what? I think that my redshirt year, and I'm a big proponent of just making sure if guys are going to take that redshirt year, they really focus on using it. And it was the most motivating experience for me because our team was good in the Big East when I was a redshirt. You know, Kyle Keurig was in there with most of the same pieces, but we went to the Final Four and got beat up by Anthony Davis and company from Kentucky. And just having to sit back and watch that whole experience from the sidelines, seeing how good our team was, how close we came, and then, you know, being able to say, all right, I have the whole summer to make myself better, to try and be that extra cog in this machine to make us national championship worthy. And I got to tell you, sitting back and seeing them make the Final Four run and thinking, you know, as a confident guy, I'm going to come in here and add my skill set. I'm going to be a leader and a voice for this team. And oh, by the way, all these guys get much better. I really felt like we could win a national championship. And I don't think I'm unique there. I think when we looked around that locker room, you know, we saw the pieces to the puzzle. It's kind of shaped how I look at teams now, where you have to be complete. You know, you have to have a big guy that can guard 7-foot big plotting centers. You have to have a great finisher, shot blocker, high motor guy like Montrezl Harrell around the rim. You've got to have a great backcourt. And then one guy who can really score you buckets when the game gets stagnant or when things slow down. That's Russ Smith. So I thought we had all the pieces to the puzzle. And I don't think I'm unique in saying we kind of felt like we were going to make a run and that we deserved to win a championship.
So you guys had that 3-game losing streak in January. I think the first one was against Syracuse. At the time, you were number 1 in the country. So what's the mood like at that point? Like, how do you kind of dig yourself out of that rut when you're losing 3 straight games?
Yeah, it was a rough couple of weeks of practice, I would say, for playing under Rick Pitino. You know, we played that Syracuse team and Michael Carter-Williams and company, and they were very, very good. And after you become number 1 in the country, the bullseye gets much bigger. We knew that. But to back up, you know, a loss to a top 10 team, to a unranked Villanova, and then an unranked Georgetown team, it just compounded so much for us. And I remember sitting in the locker room after that Georgetown game and being a little puzzled, sitting back and just being like, man, what the heck is going on? We were on such a run. And I would say we were motivated after that to kind of right the ship, but it was really the Notre Dame game and sitting in that locker room after that 5 overtime loss in South Bend, where we had our coming to Jesus moment. We had our bonding moment as a team. Realize that, you know, you don't just ride off in the sunset as number 1 in the country and go win a national championship. You're going to face adversity through the season. And it just seemed to hit us all at one quick point. And practices were rough, but I credit Coach P because he really brought us closer together. He really, as great coaches will do, magnified the mistakes we were making and got us really focused on doing the right things and playing as a team, because we had the pieces to the puzzle. We didn't lose to Joe Schmoes. You know, they were still good basketball teams, but we felt like we shouldn't have lost to anybody that year.
So you end up turning it around. You win out for the regular season. You go and you win the Big East tournament. The bracket comes out. You have Duke as the number 2 seed in your region. You guys end up playing them in the Elite Eight. Now, they had beaten you already that season, right? I think it was the Battle for Atlantis.
Yep.
That was like a top 5 matchup. Got a ton of hype heading into that game. So how were you feeling heading into that matchup? Were you like, okay, this is where we get our revenge? This is when we get to the Final Four. Like, what's going through the thought process there?
Well, I'll tell you, I obviously played for a great coach in Rick Pitino, but one of the best things he did is he hyped your opponent up like they were going to be able to crush you if you were not fully focused. And we had that with North Carolina A&T. We thought they were going to come out and just start hitting shots and just blow the doors off of us. We ended up winning that game by quite a few. Colorado State was the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. And so that was our total focus going into that game. Oregon could score the rock. They were so good in transition, so good at getting up and down, could put a lot of points on the board. That was our focus. With Duke, they were such a well-rounded team. It was, how can we focus in on the scouting report, take certain guys out of their games? We felt good going into it. Being in Indianapolis, being the number 1 seed, having a ton of our fans there really fired us up. But I remember Duke, as most people will, for Kevin Ware's injury. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, it was a tale of two halves for us, because I think we're down 2 at halftime. And from when the injury happened late in the first half to halftime, I've never been in a game that felt so weird. It felt so unmotivating. It felt like nobody wanted to score. We just had this traumatic thing unfold on the court. He gets pulled off in a stretcher. There's tears everywhere from both sides. And it was just such a traumatic thing that we really didn't know how to just keep playing. And I think going into that locker room at halftime, I don't know if coach would agree or not, but his best performance as a coach to me was the halftime speech. I still get chills thinking about it. Being able to redirect your thoughts from Kevin Ware's injury and how bad it was and how devastating that injury is to it's go time. Like, what makes that injury worse? What makes this moment worse is losing this game. And so he constantly win for Ware. We're going to go out there and compete and show everybody what we're about. And we're going to do this for Kevin. And man, we were so fired up for that second half. I think we won the game by about 20. Mm-hmm. After being down 2 at halftime. And then Coach K coined the phrase, which I know Louisville fans will always remember, is those guys can really boom you. And when you press for all 40 minutes and you try and wear teams down, we definitely had that effect, but it was just so different for that Duke game.
So one of the iconic images from that tournament run and from the NCAA tournament itself is after Kevin was hurt. I vividly remember you sitting there. You were one of the guys that went over to him and you're like patting his chest and he's got his hands behind his head and he's like signaling the teammates over. So what happened in that conversation, in that moment? Do you remember what you said to him, what he said to you, what he said to the team?
Well, he actually reminded me about it afterwards because it was, obviously he's in shock. I was the same way. I'm really not sure what prompted me just to go right towards him. I've had injuries before, and some of the more gruesome ones you have, people's faces make it a little worse. I've dislocated my shoulders, and when people see it, their facial expression just makes you feel worse. It makes you worry more. So my initial thought was, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to be as calm as I can. I'm going to tell Kevin it's going to be all right. I'm a faith-based person, and so I immediately started telling him, we're going to say a prayer. We're going to ask for some strength right here to get through this moment. And it was like a light switch. When we said amen, it was a light switch, man. He immediately focused on, I want to motivate our team to win the game. And that's all he kept saying. He's on the ground. Everybody knows what happened with his leg. They're trying to cover him up. They're trying to get people out there to help him. And I'm patting him on the chest, telling him it's going to be all right. We finished that prayer. And he was like, bring the guys over here. just win the game. Nobody worry about me. I'm going to be fine. You guys, we got a job to do. Go out there and win the game. Get it done. And I got to tell you, another incredibly motivating experience. And I can't imagine too many people would, with that kind of injury, just be able to change their focus, not worry about themselves, and just fully be about winning the game and knowing what our team had put into it. It was pretty special, I think. I mean, Louisville fans will always remember that one, but I think most college basketball fans remember that and will never be able to forget it. I certainly won't.
Yeah, I mean, it's seared into my mind, that moment. I couldn't tell you the details of how the rest of that game played out, but I can remember everything about that specific play. And yeah, it was not the prettiest moment. All right, so you guys advanced to the Final Four. You beat Duke. The first thing I have to do is I have to ask you about a story that Russ Smith told on Jeff Greer's Floyd Street's Finest podcast. He said on the flight back from Indianapolis, he managed to steal a drink from Rick Pitino on the plane. I think he said he stole a gin and tonic. Do you remember this at all? Did he tell you about that?
I mean, I'm trying to remember here. I didn't. He's never told me that story. But I will tell you this, like, Russ was that one guy, even if Coach is as mad as he has ever been, Russ could ease the tension better than anyone ever. He and Gorgie was very good at it as well, but they're just always smiling. They're always goofy. They're always getting into trouble. So I would, if Russ said it, I'm sure it happened, but I don't exactly remember snagging drinks. I also think, who takes a bus ride from Indianapolis to Louisville? It's like a 2-hour drive.
All right, so you're at the Final Four. You're playing Wichita State. There are 9 seed in that game. I believe they were up by 12 with 13 minutes left when you guys go on your run. And Tim Henderson, who I don't think anybody outside of the Louisville program could have named before the Final Four, comes in, bangs home 2 big threes. You have 20 points. So take me through like what motivated that comeback and what you're thinking when you see a walk-on come in, jack up a couple threes and hit him in the Final Four on the biggest stage.
Yeah, so during my redshirt year, obviously you can't play, you can't travel. Tim Henderson, in my opinion, was the best walk-on in the country. And he was physical enough. He could shoot it. He was a high IQ player out there. He played hard as heck every possession. And I gotta be honest, like, I loved Kevin's game. He brought a little extra dimension, athleticism, length to the table. But when Kevin went down, we all felt really confident that Tim Henderson was going to be able to step up. And he's also playing behind an All-American in Russ Smith. So we were, I don't know how much he's going to be needed, but if he gets called upon, we'll be ready. And they had all complete control of that game. I would have to go back and double check this, but I'm pretty sure they did not have a turnover up until that point. And I think I drove the first one, helped way too much, and I kick it to Tim. He knocks down that first three, and it was game on from that point. I think everybody kind of looked around like, all right, we needed to see one go in and give us the chance to get in our press in a moment where we can tighten these guys up a little bit. And then turnover after turnover after turnover, they started to play not to lose versus playing to win, which just fell right into our hands. We spend the whole game wearing you down. We spend the whole game speeding you up. And for a lot of these games, even the Syracuse game, which is one of my favorite games ever in the Big East tournament and the championship game, we're down like 20 points in the second half. And you see the moment in the game. I remember it very vividly. The moment where Michael Carter-Williams throws it out of bounds and starts yelling at his teammate, we were like, all right, there's the crack in the armor that we need. We're going to pick it up even more. And same thing in that Wichita State game. When Tim made that shot, he's going to be known as Wichita Henderson in Louisville, Kentucky forever. But he hits the first one, and we jump in that press right away. They come down, turn it over. Russ throws him the second one in the same exact spot. And when he hit that second one, we just had him right where we wanted him. I know people might not believe that, being down 6 or 7 or whatever it was, but we felt so confident at that point that we were going to be able to make our run. And again, I will say, and I thought Tim was the best walk-on in the country. I think outside of maybe the top 30 or 40 teams, he would have played a ton of minutes for almost any Division I team out there.
Before we continue that interview, I just have to let you guys know that it is that time of year again. We have waited 2 years for this moment, and it is finally here. March's biggest tournament is back. Gonzaga's getting ready to run the table. Slippers are being fit as we speak. And our partners over at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, are putting our listeners at the center of the action. How? If you bet $4 on an underdog in a select game this week and that underdog wins, you win $256. That's right, $256. Here's how it works. You download the app now. You use the promo code FIELD68 when you sign up. Scroll through the list of select underdogs, bet $4 on one of them to win, and cash $256 when they do. There is no better way for you to put your college hoops knowledge to the test and then to put your money where your mouth is with DraftKings Sportsbook. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. I know this because I use them. So remember, the code is FIELD68. That's FIELD68 to turn $4 into $256. For a limited time only, you must be 21 years or older. Restrictions apply. Go to DraftKings.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, you mentioned the runs that you guys went on. I don't think people quite realize that's kind of how your team was built, right? Once you start making those shots, once people start getting their legs a little bit worn, and you're able to make a shot, get in your press, score off a turnover, get in your press again. Like that's how it just kind of builds and it snowballs. Like that's what Louisville basketball is built on. And that's a perfect segue to the national title game. What's interesting about that game to me is I think most people will remember it as the Spike Albrecht game. And Michigan didn't even win the game, but it was Spike that came out and he had 17 in the first half. So I need you to be honest with me. How much did you know about him heading into that game? Where was he on your scouting report? Did you guys even worry about him? I mean, they got Trey Burke. They got all these NBA players on the roster. And it's Spike Albrecht out of nowhere coming up with 17 points. What did you know about him heading in?
Well, our coaches were held accountable for their scouts. So I don't think they're leaving anybody off. An incredible three-point shooter. We knew that, but he wasn't, a focus. I don't think anybody's going to think that's totally shocking. He should have been, but he was not a focus. I would imagine much in the way that Tim Henderson was not a focus. Opportunity there came about because Trey got in foul trouble early and he stepped into the game. We knew he hadn't missed a three all tournament long, a great free throw shooter, a high IQ guy, but he just got all these open opportunities from our matchup zone early on in a couple plays in transition that it was that knockout punch early that we weren't expecting. And once I gave, Tim Henderson and Peyton Siva and Russ Smith enough grief out of every timeout or every stop play that Spike was killing them, we eventually started to turn it up and slow him down in that second half. But I mean, you're on it. He wasn't a big time focus. And he certainly should have been because he went nuts. And if you go back and watch the game, you'll see me yelling at Peyton and yelling at Tim and, they're not in the right spot or we're not doing what we worked on. But he found all these little spots to get himself going. And then some of the shots he hit, I mean, they weren't contested. He's getting in the lane, shooting little floaters over Gorgie. He's getting fouled going to the rim. He's making threes right in Russ's face. I mean, once he got going, the guy was lights out.
Yeah, and he hit a couple deep ones too. Like these weren't just like wide open threes with nobody around him. He hit some tough shots. And, when you're at that level and you have guys that get it going, there's going to be a lot of guys that are able to make those shots once they get it going. Now take me through, you're the guy that kind of sparked the comeback, right? I believe it was 4 threes in 4 straight possessions at the end of the first half. I might be wrong on that. But what's going through your head in that moment? Are you just like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. I'm open. I got to get this shot off. Like where does that run and that kind of in the zone moment come from?
Yeah. Russ had been the guy for us most of the season that would get us our spark, that would start scoring a couple. And then, it would spark our defense. And then things would open up for us because everybody would kind of sag in the paint. And I remember being in a timeout and coach draws a play for me and he says, if you move before the screen, and he's very frustrated at this point because we're already down 10, 12, whatever it was. So if you move before the screen, I'm taking you out and I'm not playing you again, period. And so I'd heard this basically every game of my college career at Louisville up to this point, but I go under the basket and Nick Stauskas kind of has his arm up. And so I take off early before the screen gets there, trying to pick up a foul coming off a double screen. And I get the ball I end up driving to the goal and getting fouled. So I'm going to the free throw line, and he can't take me out, which is perfect because timeout happens, TV timeout, and I have to go back over there. And he crushes me. I don't even know if we set up a play outside of the defense, but he crushes me the whole timeout. Go back out there. I make 2 free throws. And then what had happened, because Kevin Ware was out, I moved over to the 2 spot and played alongside Wayne Blackshear. And that didn't happen very much because we had a lot of depth at every position. And Wayne would come in and play the 4 spot more than the 3. And so it changed our whole dynamic. I was on the other side of the floor. And once the 2 free throws and the first 3 went down off the out of bounds underneath play, I was like, all right, time to find some shots. And to Peyton's credit, Peyton Siva, such a smart player. He knew how to find the hot hand, most humble guy. He was just, he was on it. And so he found me the next few possessions. And again, you look at our defensive body language, you look at our mentality, totally changed once we got going. And then the greatest dunk I have seen in a college basketball game, we get a steal up top, and Wayne kicks it up to Peyton. He throws this kind of crazy, awkward lob, and Montrezl Harrell finishes it. And I got to tell you, I've never heard an arena that loud. And it brings back such good memories and gives me chills to think about that run.
Montrez literally looked like he was flying on that dunk.
The picture,
that's the one thing I remember.
It looks impossible to dunk. It really does.
Yeah, I just remember watching him and being like, "Oh wow, okay, there he goes," and it felt like he was in the air for at least 10 minutes when he took off on that. So where were you? Where was your sight line on that dunk? Were you on the court?
I'm still on the ground, actually. So I've gone back and looked at this play a couple times, but our defense had loose principles. It was more like the feel of how things were going than it was like you have to do this. Well, we have a couple plays where we're supposed to switch screens and we don't. And then we have a couple plays where we shouldn't have switched and we do. Well, the play where we switch and we might not have wanted to was Mitch McGarry comes out to set a screen for Spike Albrecht, and I switch with Gorgie. So Karis LeVert or Tim Hardaway, they go low, and Gorgie stays with him, and I'm up top in the ball screen. Well, I hit the ground to kind of tap the ball away towards Wayne. It makes my knee blow up to like a softball. It looks like I have 2 knees. I didn't even notice this until hours after the game at the hotel when I finally get to change and take a shower. And it blew my knee up. But your adrenaline's going so much. I stayed on the ground until the ball gets dunked, and then I get up and get in our defensive set. But my sight line wasn't that great. I like watching the videos a little bit more than where I saw them from.
All right, so you guys make your run at the end of the first half. You come back and you kind of take control in the second half, and you win the game. Take me through. What do you remember in those moments after the buzzer sounds when you finally get the job done? I've done a dozen of these interviews by now, and it's interesting. Some guys remember every specific detail, like it's seared into their brain. And other guys like Steve Meerfeld, who is the coach, the Hampton head coach when they beat Iowa State. And that picture of him getting picked up by one of his players, he doesn't remember any of that. He said he has no recollection of what happened on that court in that moment. So do you remember the end of the game when the thing blows up and you have all the confetti coming down? And do you remember all of that? Do you remember who you celebrated with, where you went, who you talked to?
Yeah, I have a great picture. It's at my house. It's not in my office here, but almost being tackled by the team. And it's VT and Tim Henderson and Dark Slime and Gorgie and all the guys run out to half court. And I will never forget that when the I call it the gun, but when all the stuff actually pops and you got the streamers going everywhere and the music starts playing, it's a lot louder than you think. It's very jolting. So I remember that. I remember hugging the guys and just kind of jumping up and down, being so excited. And I wanted to make sure I told Trey Burke that I thought he played a fantastic game and that he was one of the best players in the country. And he had a great season. I wanted to make sure I did the same with Coach Beeline. And then really my focus was going to my dad. I don't know if this got picked up all that much. We tried not to, but my dad was really struggling at the time. He passed away a few months after that. And so that was the last game he got to see me play in person. And, he was hurting. So making trips to some of these sites was very difficult. And I'll tell you, this means more to me than anything Coach P has ever done for me. I went to him right before we go to Atlanta, and I told him my dad was really hurting, and I didn't know what he could do to make him more comfortable or to help him or anything, but he's going to try and make it to see our team play in the national championship. And if you go back and watch, my dad's not sitting, good seats. My dad's like row 1, seat 1, right behind the bench for the national championship game. And I think about all the people that were there, all the Louisville royalty, coach's family, administration, it was everybody. And my dad had one of the best seats in the house. So all I was really concerned with after the game, I wanted to hug the guys, but I wanted to get my piece of the net and I wanted to take it to my dad. And it's kind of funny. I was so excited to see him and give him a hug after we cut the net down, and I'm clenching the net in my hand so hard so I don't forget it. And then obviously I forget to give him the net after we have a 5-minute conversation where it's clenched in my hand while he's sitting there right after the game. But that was more my focus. It was fun to get up on the stage and hear Jim Nantz talk about our team and, get to celebrate with those guys, and memories I'll never forget. I remember being out there. I remember some of the conversations with the guys. I remember all the streamers and stuff that gets sent everywhere, trying to get your hats and your shirts and just getting to celebrate. I tried to take every second in because I knew how special it was. Not everybody gets there. So
what was the reaction like when you guys get back to Louisville? When you show up at the airport, are there people waiting for you there? Like what do you remember about coming back?
Yeah, there were, but Louisville put together quite a few ways for our team to celebrate, events and stuff down at the Yum Center. And I remember I kind of hung on to the national championship trophy. And so I remember all right, I got to get from our basketball facility where there were tons of people and reporters back to the dorm. And so I remember buckling it up in my car. And I'm just driving for a minute, and I'm just looking over thinking, man, I got the national championship trophy just buckled up, riding shotgun as I head back to the dorm. And it stayed in my room for a week. And one of the guys on the team called and was just like, hey, you ever going to bring that back? Because we need that trophy. And I thought about trying to tell him I lost it or something, but I don't think I could have gotten away with that one.
Yeah, someone would have found it eventually.
Yeah.
All right, this is what I want to end with. So you obviously had the court case to try to get some of this stuff to overturn with some of the rulings from the NCAA, and I just wondered, why was that so important to you, and what did it mean to have it be everybody that's a Louisville fan, everyone that's a sane college basketball fan that doesn't wear blue in the state of Kentucky realizes that any kind of wiping away records is probably pretty dumb. But why was it so important to you specifically that you went that far into that length?
Well, I look back at our team and all the fond memories, and I think about all the hard work. And if you really line up what was done with taking away all the hard work, the lifetime of hard work for these young kids, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And then I look around at all the hypocrisy and all of the, Penn State got all their wins reinstated. Why is Louisville put out that they're a bunch of villains and that everybody on that team is terrible and they're cheaters and they're X, Y, and Z? I didn't have any help, to win basketball games. Shane Bohannon, Russ Smith, Gorgie, we didn't have any help to go win basketball games. If there was an improper benefit while someone was at school, all right, that seems like something you can deal with. I don't think it warrants taking championships and seasons and wins away from some of these kids. Some of these guys that, when you know them personally, they're some of the best guys you'll ever meet. And I was going to try and do everything in my power to reinstate everything I could. And ultimately, the NCAA is like a club. They're not police officers. They don't have any, if you're not under their umbrella, they don't really have any say over what you do or how you do it. And I really felt like we needed to take some real action to try and see what we could do. And ultimately, they reinstated wins for the individuals. They reinstated awards for the individuals. But it ended up being that the university had to go back and try and get the actual championship reinstated. Unfortunately, they didn't feel like they had enough power to do that, didn't have enough legs to stand on. And we didn't get everything we wanted accomplished, to say the least, but we had to at least try. And I really wish the narrative was different. It was some of the best moments of my life. Again, to have it somewhat tainted with the experience of my dad getting to go to those games. And, you know, it still hurts, but at the same time, and maybe everybody outside Greg Marshall will say that the best team won. And, you know, Michigan had like 8 pros on that team. Like, what did the best team win or not? And I don't know if you could have put more talent on that team. We won the games. I hate the narrative that's out there, but ultimately, you know, it is what it is. And I like to try and live in a way where, you know, people who talk trash about you, nobody believes them anyway. So that's how it goes.
Well, anybody that is sane, like I said, will remember that game for what it was and that run for what it was and how much fun it was to watch you guys make all of these ridiculous comebacks. I'm sure that there were plenty of Louisville fans that would have not complained if you hadn't gotten down by double digits in basically every single game that you played that was relevant in March. But again, what matters is the net that you got. What matters is the memories that you have and the memories you made for all the Louisville fans. So they can't take that away.
I totally agree. And I'll tell you, the best part is people's experience knowing who they were with and what they were doing while they watched that national championship game, and how it brought people closer together, how they loved the moment. Like you mentioned, it's been a long time. And I'm sitting here at my office right now. This desk is the national championship floor we played on, with a big old national championship logo stamped right here in the middle, covered back up. So it kind of looks like the court, but a good buddy of mine, Ted Mitzloff, put this together for me. And those memories will always bring back some of the best times of my life.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had to watch that game sitting in between Jeff Borzello and Jeff Goodman. So I can promise you it was not one of my best memories of all time. So Luke, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it very much.